Hey, it's Medium Jenny Lee. I'm here in a different location today as my teenager is extraordinarily loud and you might even be able to hear him even though I'm a floor above him. Um, but there was no way that I could do this video right next to where he is because he's so loud. I didn't get to record my video this morning when he would still be asleep because I had to go to the dentist and my jaw still hurts because they had to do a root. They didn't do a root canal. They had to do a crown on a tooth all the way back here, the last one on the bottom. It had really super old fillings in it and it had cracked. So, yay me. But Frosty took the little one out to go do some shopping, just him and her, so I have a different space to myself right now. Let's get into the Raw Contact session 12. So this should be video number 13. Wow, I've done a lot of these. And I thought yesterday's was going to be short and it was really long. It was like the longest one yet. And this session is pretty long, so we'll see how long it takes. So we better get started. Okay. Dawn says, I got a call from Henry Puharich. Remember him? Dawn asked about him earlier in the book because it turns out that Henry Puharich, during one of his sessions where he had mediums come in, one of his people he had come in was able to channel information about the Council of Nine. And Ra had said that that person accurately explained the Council of Nine and the information that he was given. Who knew they were friends with each other? Well. So Henry Puharich said that he's going to be here next month. Would it be possible for him to join? And this other person, Michelle de Oberon, you guys know I can't pronounce anything. Apparently he's also known as George Hunt Williamson. And I could have sworn, Dawn, that Ross said that that was all the people that would be available to come to the circle channeling at this current time, in case you forgot, because he says no. Ross says no, they're not properly attuned because they have distortions because of busyness. They're too busy. They're not attuned. So no. It would be requested that these entities spend a brief time in a diurnal cycle of contemplation. So I'm pretty sure this is a word we looked up already and it meant during the day. So a daily cycle. They need a brief time in a daily cycle of contemplation, and then you can ask again if they can come. This group is highly balanced to the instrument, Carla, and contact with the instrument on a day-to-day basis because each person in the circle has contact with her on a day-to-day basis, and because they all meditate together and they all are thinking about all this stuff together. So to invite somebody in who wasn't on the same page with them, who hadn't been part of their group already, would not be good. Okay. Could you describe what a chariot is? Remember they said the Crusaders come in a chariot. The Orion Crusaders. The term chariot is a term used in warfare among your people, and that is its significance. The shape of the Orion craft is one of the following. Firstly, the elongated ovoid shape, which makes me think of the cigar-shaped UFOs that people have seen throughout history, which is of a darker nature than silver, but with a metallic appearance if seen in the light. In the absence of the light, it appears to be red or fiery in some manner. So the Orion Crusaders do have spacecrafts that we see. Other craft include disc-shaped objects of a small nature, approximately 12 feet in your measurement and diameter. The box-like shape, approximately 40 feet from side to side in your measurement. So a box-like shape, I'm not sure what that kind is. There's been some recent sightings of some box-like shaped ones. And then small disc shaped. So, this was 1981. I feel like a lot of UFO sightings have been changing really recently of what we see and, all that. Other craft can take on a desired shape through the use of thought control mechanisms. There are various civilization complexes which work with this group. Some are more able to use intelligent infinity than others. The information is very seldom shared, therefore the chariots vary greatly in shape and appearance. So cigar shapes, box shapes, small discs, and a lot of other ones. Okay. Is there any effort by the Confederation to stop the Orion chariots from arriving here? Every effort is made to quarantine the planet. However, the network of Guardians, much like our other pattern of patrols, like any other pattern of patrols on whatever level, does not hinder each and every entity from penetrating quarantine, for if request is made in light and love, the law of one will be met with acquiescence. If the request is not made due to the slipping through the net, there is penetration of this net. So if entities ask in light and love, they can go through, and sometimes they just slip through. But Guardians are watching over the space around our planet, but not very well. No. There's rules they have to follow about free will and whatnot, so how does the Confederation stop the Orion chariot from coming through the quarantine? There is contact at the level of light form or light body being, depending upon the vibration of the Guardian. These Guardians sweep reaches of your Earth's energy field, attempting to be aware of any entities approaching. An entity which is approaching is hailed in the name of the one Creator, and any entity thus hailed is bathed in light and love, and will of free will obey the quarantine due to the power of the law of one. So most entities will obey the quarantine because they are of light and love and the law of one. What if they don't obey it? To not obey quarantine after being hailed on this level of which you speak will be equivalent to your not stopping upon walking into a solid brick wall. So they can't get through. They can't. What would happen then if he did this? What happened to the chariot, to his chariot? The Creator is one being. The vibratory level of those able to reach the quarantine boundaries is such that upon seeing the light and love net, it is impossible to break this law. Therefore, nothing happens. No attempt is made, and there's no confrontation. So a being or beings might ask to be able to come through our quarantine net. And if they're hailed in light and love through the law of one, they firstly won't be able to, and they wouldn't. However, the only beings who are able to penetrate the quarantine are those who discover windows or distortions in the space-time continuum surrounding your planet's energy field. Through these windows they come. These windows are rare and unpredictable. So basically, a law-abiding entity would ask, and most likely the Guardians would say, no, you can't do that right now. And the law-abiding entity would say, okay, and they would go back to wherever they came from. But the Orion group, on the other hand, finds places where they can sneak in without asking. Does this account for what we call the UFO flaps, where a large number of UFOs show up like this in 1973? I don't know what a UFO flap is. I probably should have looked it up before we started this, but it sounds like there was just a bunch of them that were sighted together in 1973. There's also a lot of them being sighted together in large groups now. Well then, are most of the UFO, and then Ross says this is correct. Are most of the UFOs which are seen in our skies from the Orion group? Many of those seen in your skies are the Orion group. They send out messages. Some are received by those who are oriented towards service to others. These messages then are related to be acceptable to those entities while warning of difficulties ahead. So okay, let's continue this paragraph, then we'll talk about it. This is the most that self-serving entities can do when faced with those who wish to serve others. The contacts which the Orion group finds most helpful in their cause are those contacts made with entities whose orientation is towards service of self. So the Orion group sneaks in through little chinks and cracks and holes that appear in the net of that surrounds our planet, that the guardians are supposed to be watching over, but they can't watch all the holes and crannies and nooks and crannies. Somehow, I don't know. Some of this doesn't make any sense to me. And then the Orion group ships, chariots, entities come, and they send telepathic messages down to the people. And some people that are of a service to others, vibratory complex, hear those messages, and what is related to them is basically a sense of doom. Like they understand them as warnings of difficulties ahead. So a feeling that something bad is going to happen. Man, have I had that happen to me many, 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 many times. As a matter of fact, thinking back on it, when Frost Giant first got out of the Army, we lived in a very tiny little apartment while we were trying to get settled back and be living back in Virginia. And this would have been the end of 2012 and the beginning of 2013. 2012. And the whole time we lived there, every single day, I felt this horrible sense that something just absolutely terrible is going to happen. Like, I even wrote a short story about it, about the earth, like about the cities near us getting blown up, and we were having to live in like an apocalyptic time. Maybe I should add that to my story time, read my short story out loud to you guys about that. If you're interested, let me know. I've never shared that short story with anybody except for Frost Giant. And I wonder now if that's what was happening, if I wasn't hearing these Orion group telepathic messages of doom and gloom. But when the telepathic messages are sent to people who have service to self, they get a different message, and it affects them completely differently. All right, so other UFOs that are sighted. There are many thought form entities in your skies which are of positive nature and are the projections of the Confederation. Other sightings are due to the inadvertent visualization of your people's optical mechanisms of your own government's weaponry. So the Confederation creates thought-formed entities that appear in our sky. They're not real, physical, made of metal or any other substance craft. They're thought forms, and those are positive from the Confederation. But the other ones that we see are our own government's weaponry. Remember, Ross said the United States and many other governments in our planet Earth have created disc-shaped UFOs that are not for transport, but are for blowing each other up. Yay, us. Which group was it that contacted Henry Puharich in Israel in 1972? This guy keeps coming up, doesn't he? We refrain from answering this query due to the fact that Henry will read this. This would cause distortions in its future. It's necessary that each being use free and complete discernment from within the all-self, which is at the heart and mind-body, which is at the heart of the mind-body-spirit complex. So they can't tell Don what kind, because it might affect Henry's future, and that'll screw up his free will. Does that also apply to the warnings? Does that also apply to answering who was contacting the group that I was originally in 1962? The query may be answered. The group was contacted by the Confederation. So Don was in a group, was contacted by some aliens. Those were Confederation ones. And I think that Ra could tell him that because he might have already guessed it. Where maybe what was going on with Henry hadn't really figured out what that was yet. And if he knew the truth, it would probably really screw him up. All right. Did they have any other craft in our area at the time? There are no craft. They are thought forms. Duh, Don. He just said that. The Confederation doesn't create crafts. They create thought forms. I always give Don such a hard time. But remember, he's having to listen to these answers and then quickly answer another question where we have plenty of time to think about what has been said previously. So, no offense, Don. All right. The Orion Crusaders. They contact people telepathically? Yes. Through telepathy, the philosophy of the law of one with the distortion of service to self is promulgated. Did I say that right? In advanced groups, there are rituals and exercises given, just like Ra has given us exercises for service to others. And these have been written down, just as the service to other oriented entities have written down philosophies from their teachers. The philosophy concerns the service of manipulating others that they may experience service toward the other self through the experience becoming able to appreciate service to self. I believe this is exactly what I completely went into a ranting, raving, crying fit about yesterday. The service to self entities and people are manipulating others so that they think that they're serving others, but really they're just serving themselves. These entities thus become more oriented towards service to self and in turn manipulate others so that they in turn might experience the service toward the other self. It's just a repeating cycle of horribleness to each other. Would this be the origin of what you call black magic? What a weird question. Yes and no. The Orion group has aided the so-called negatively oriented among your mind-body-spirit complexes. These same entities would be concerning themselves with service to self in any case, and there are many upon your so-called inner planes which are negatively oriented and thus available as inner teachers or guides and so-called possessors of certain souls who seek this distortion of service to self. I've been thinking about this. So the majority of people are willing to admit that there are negative entities out there that exist, and we label them in different ways, one of which is the demon, right? And this makes me wonder, this particular part of this book, because it talks about possessing others. It uses the word possessing others. That if that isn't kind of part of this so-called possessors of certain souls who seek this distortion of service to self. So there are inner teachers and guides and possessors of souls in the service to self. So there's beings, entities that are doing the same work, but in the service to self instead of the service to others. Which I don't know how you guys have felt about that, because Ra tries to make it seem like everybody's working for each other. Everybody's following the law of one. Everybody's following the law of free will. And even if you're doing service for self, in turn that helps others because we're all one. Don and his group are already starting to feel like the service to self people are pretty awful. And after my ranting, raving session yesterday, you know how I feel about it. And there's been a couple times that Ra uses the word negative for the service to self people. And I think that we should tread lightly here, because there are plenty of people who think that they have the distortion that they're doing things for others when they're really not. And they don't realize that what they're doing is negatively impacting others. They just don't. So I feel like some understanding and leniency needs to be taken in those situations. Now, the jerks who clearly who know that they are manipulating and taking advantage and stepping on people and trying to control others so that they can get what they want, screw those people. They are just negative, you know what's. Let's keep going. Next. Okay. Is it possible for an entity on here on Earth to be so confused by the call of the Confederation and the Orion group and alternating one way or the other, inaudible, inaudible? This is what I was just saying. It's entirely possible for the unattuned channel, as you call that service, to receive both the positive and negative communications. If the entity at the base of its confusion is oriented towards service to others, the entity will receive messages of doom. That's what I was just talking about. If the entity at the base of the complex of being is oriented towards service to self, the crusaders, who in this case do not find it necessary to lie, will simply begin to give the philosophy they are here to give. So at one point in time, my friend Anna had kind of gone over all this with me, and I didn't quite get it because it sounded, sorry Anna if you're watching this, it sounded a little crazy. And this still sounds kind of crazy, but I get it now. And I hope that if you're watching this, that you get it too, especially if you happen to be one of these service to others types. If these entities really exist and they're really telepathically sending messages down to the people of Earth, trying to influence us one way or the other, what they're doing to the people who are of an orientation of service to others is creating fear. If you have found yourself completely engulfed in fear, and Lord, haven't we all, especially in the past couple of years, more than normal. Remember, people, it is an illusion. It's an illusion. And if you put in the law of attraction here, sprinkle in a little law of attraction, by concentrating on the fear and the negative, you're only attracting more fear and negative. You have to not give it your attention. Decide that you're not going to let it control how you live your life. Know that most of it is complete and utter BS. And live your life without it. You can't live your life in a fear. I have said that to people more recently than ever. You can't live your life in fear. You just can't. Don't do it. Because you're giving in to these Orion Crusader assholes. Sorry, I had to cuss there. But see, what they're saying here is that if you are a service to self type, you're not going to hear the doom and gloom information. You're just going to hear, because guess what Ra just said? Because the doom and gloom information is a lie. It's a frickin' lie. But if you're the service to self type, you're not going to hear the lies. You're just going to hear what they really wanted to tell you in the first place, which is to manipulate others so that you can get what you want. Okay. All right, what was the question here? Oh, there was no question. He's still talking about this. He, as in Ra, who's not a he. Okay. Many of your so-called contacts among your people have been confused and self-destructive because the channels were oriented towards service to others, but in the desire for proof, were open to the lying information of the Crusaders, who then were able to neutralize the effectiveness of the channel. Okay. Listen up. I don't know. It's starting to get stormy. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I should really I don't even know if I should really say this. But why not? We've already gone into crazy woo-woo world. But I feel like this needs to be said. And maybe if I say it out loud and I put it out into the universe, somehow I'll help break the cycle. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna be brave, people. Mass shootings that continuously keep happening over and over and over again in schools and shopping centers and public places where people are just going about their everyday. There is a wide variety of reasons why those are happening. Some are legitimate people with issues. Some are copycat people who just want to be somebody, even if it's somebody awful. And some of them, I know this, I feel it, I know it, and I feel it. Some of these are being done through mind control. And I've said this to Frosty a couple times, and I think he just thinks I'm crazy. But after reading this book, and that's what these Orion Crusaders are doing. Oh God. Okay. They're listening to me because they know I'm calling them out. And I don't give a rat's ass because I'm not living in your fear. And I know that I'm protected and I'm here for a higher purpose, higher than your stupid ass shit. Okay. After reading this book, and Ra is saying that the Orion Crusader people are coming down to Earth to propagate information for mind control. Yeah. I have felt that certain human people have been using mind control to cause people to go out and do these shootings so that guns will be taken away from the people. And that's exactly the result of them, is that people are getting pissed, they're getting tired of it, they can't take anymore, and they're just like, let's just get rid of guns. In some ways, I can't disagree, but in some ways I can disagree, because America wouldn't be America if the people that lived here didn't have a way to fight against the British. And clearly there's so many people in charge and in power of things that they're willing to control us any way that they can. And if we don't have some way to fight back against them, then we just become enslaved. If that's something that should happen, not saying that it is, because I don't know. And maybe that whole thought pattern, that whole distortion of reality is part of the Orion doom and gloom information that's been put into my head. That's something that they would do to us. You know, our own government. Or somebody else, I don't know. Anyway, I did not mean for this to get into the topic of gun control, because that's not where we're going here, but it went there in a roundabout way. And really all of this is just for us to be thinking and contemplating, and I hope it's making you think and contemplate in whatever way that means. Free will. There's free will, so you can think about it however you want to think about it. And we can disagree, and that's perfectly fine, and you can think I'm completely nuts, and that's fine too, because who knows? Who really knows? Nobody. Okay, where were we? Where are we? See, this session is very long. Okay. Are most of the Crusaders fourth density? Yes. Does an individual in the fourth density normally appear, or are they normally invisible? I love this part. The use of your word normal is one which befuddles the meaning of the question. I think Rod just said there's no such thing as normal. Yeah. The fourth density is by choice not visible to the third density. It is possible for the fourth density to be visible. However, it is not the choice of the fourth density entity to be visible due to the necessity for concentration upon a rather difficult vibrational complex, which is the third density you experience. So it's really hard for a fourth density being to become visible to a third density being, because it's hard for them to communicate with us in the first place. So normally they choose not to, but it doesn't mean that they can't. Such as when Ra decided to come to Earth and hang out with the Egyptians a couple of times, right? Okay. Are any of the Confederation or Orion individuals walking among us? No. None of the either of the groups are walking among you. However, the Crusaders of the Orion use two types of entity to do their bidding. One is a thought form, and one's a robot. There have been all these reports of people claiming that people are robots. And what if they are? Because here it is. Some of them aren't even people, they're thought forms, and some of them are robots. What in the hell? Can you describe the robot? It looks like any other being. It is a construct. So it's a man-made being. And then Dawn's like onto something here. Is the robot what is normally called Men in Black? No. Who are the Men in Black? The Men in Black are a thought form. Ooh, what? Okay. The Men in Black are a thought form type of entity which has some beingness to their makeup. They have certain physical characteristics given them. However, their true vibrational nature is without third density vibrational characteristics. Therefore, they are able to materialize and dematerialize when necessary. Are all of these Men in Black then used by the Orion Crusaders? Yes. Correct. So if one were to visit me, this is a great question. Don's like, you can see his wheels are turning here. So if one of them were to visit me and I like grabbed him and like locked him in the closet, could I like keep him there, or would he like disappear or something? It depends on which type of entity you grab. You are perhaps able to perceive a construct. The construct might be kept for a brief period, although these constructs also have an ability to disappear. The programming on these constructs, however, makes it more difficult to remotely control them. You would not be able to grapple with a thought form entity of the Men in Black, as you call it, type. If I was to grapple with one, is it a mistake? There are no mistakes under the law of one. What I'm saying is, would I be polarizing more towards self-service or towards service of others when I did this act of locking them up a thought form or construct? Consider the question for yourself. We interpret the law of one, but we do not but not to the extent of advice. We can't give you advice. I love this little part. The Men in Black are not real people. They're thought forms and constructs. So some are sort of made up of material and some aren't. Which totally makes sense, because Men in Black traditionally come and visit people who have given too much information against the service to the self and for the service of others. I might get the Men in Black sent to me after I post this video, because I called them out on their stupid shit with this damn school shootings and whatnot. I'll grapple them and put them in the closet. No, I'm just kidding. Who knows? But it also makes me think of the movie The Matrix, right? The Men in Black in The Matrix, Mr. Smith, he's not a real person. He's part of the program. Implies a lot of stuff. But that was a real crazy part of this book. Absolutely. Okay. Next. You spoke of wanderers. Who are the wanderers and where do they come from? Imagine, if you will, the sands of your shores, as countless as the grains of sand are the sources of intelligent infinity. When a social memory complex has achieved its complete understanding of its desire, it may conclude that its desire is service to others, with a distortion towards reaching their hand figuratively to any entities who call for aid. These entities, whom you may call the brothers and sisters of sorrow, move towards this calling of sorrow. These entities are from all reaches of the infinite creation and are bound together by the desire to serve in this distortion. When I read this part, it made me really sad. And I felt it in like the core of my whole being. So this video is just gonna keep getting weirder and weirder. I feel like I feel like I'm one of these. There's been a lot of things that have come up over the past few years. Really more than that. Really, there's been things that have come up over my whole life that make me feel like they were already okay. Let's start over again. There's been a ton of things over the whole course of my life that made me feel like there was something different about me in a way that was meant to help other people. And then in the last couple of years, there's been a lot more information that has come about that. And then when I read this, I was like a part of me felt really, I don't know what the words are. It's weird because this is something that also has happened to me so many times in my life. I feel like there aren't any words in this language that I can communicate to express what it is that I feel or think sometimes. Might be why I like being a visual artist. Anyway, when I read this part in the book, I felt it in the core of my soul, the sadness, like a homesickness, like a, why did I decide to come here? And then the fact that they're called the brothers and sisters of sorrow because they move towards people who are in entities that are experiencing sorrow. Good Lord Almighty. The next part is real confusing, though. Dawn asks how many of them are incarnate on Earth now. See, this session is so long. Oh, good God. Okay. The number is approximate due to a heavy influx of those being birthed at this time due to an intensive need to lighten the planetary vibration and thus aid in harvest. I was in my mom's belly when they were doing these sessions, so I'm getting ready to be birthed into this planetary experience. But then Ra says the approximate number is 65 million. 65 million. First of all, if it's 65 million, that means there's 65 million entities in the universe that have reached this higher dimension. But in the way that Ra explains it, the way that you get to the fourth dimension is by the whole entire planet of beings deciding to move to the fourth dimension. So then that means there would have to be, just for this little bit, 65 million planetary beings that have made it to the fourth dimension. My brain hurts because in our ridiculous little existence of Earth over here, we have yet to scientifically prove that there's even life on another planet. Which, of course, I don't ascribe to this, blah, 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 whatever. I know that there's life on other planets. But how can there be that many that have evolved already to the next dimension? And that would mean that like every single one of them had to have come from a different planet. How is that? I mean, I guess it's definitely possible that there's that there's enough planets in the universe, because we keep, they just came out with that new James Webb telescope, and they took a picture of deep space, and the whole thing's nothing but galaxies, and every galaxy is going to have a ton of planets in it. And that's not even as far as we can see. And then you're talking about if there's other dimensions too, not just in our dimension. Like if there was parallel universes, each parallel universe would have the same amount of stuff in it, roughly. But they haven't talked about that in here. So, I don't know. And then I mentioned this to Charity because even though I hadn't recorded this video yet, there's some important information I needed to share with her. And if you don't know who Charity is, I keep mentioning her in this video, in these videos. It's Charity Janice. She's an amazing, fantastic, wonderful, intuitive reader who does tarot reading, love readings, and tarot twin flame readings here on YouTube. And I will put her links in the description box. You should definitely go check her out. She does personal readings also. And she can do a personal reading about anything. She did a past life one for me, and I got one for my parents. And they're absolutely amazing. But anyway, I had to tell her some information. And I had to tell her this part. And she was like, how can that be so many? Maybe that was a misconception through, like, with the information coming from Ra through Carla. Maybe Carla interpreted it wrong and said it wrong, because how could it possibly be 65 million? Like, Charity said, do you think she meant 65,000? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. How is this possible? There are no impossibilities, I guess, right? Okay. Are most of these fourth density? Few are fourth density. The largest number of wanderers are sixth density. I love this part. And I laughed out loud because, well, the desire to serve must be distorted toward a great deal of purity of mind and what you may call foolhardiness or bravery, depending upon your distortion complex judgment. Okay, so some of these wander entities are from the fourth dimension. I would assume some of them are also from the fifth dimension, even though Ra doesn't say that. But the largest number of them are sixth density. Let's go back and review what that is, because even though I've read it and I've read it and I've reviewed it and I've reviewed it, it's just such a weird, such a weird concept. I feel like we need to go back and look at it again. Okay, so we know very clearly now that a third density being is one that's self-aware. I got that. I feel really comfortable understanding third density. Fourth density is when they become a social memory complex. So, harvest to the fourth density of love and understanding. A social memory complex is born, where thoughts become things, love becomes visible, and positive and negative polarities separate from each other to inhabit environments more suited to their respective and divergent courses of evolution. So fourth density, see, that's something I keep forgetting, because to me I keep thinking the whole entire planet of people has to decide to be one way or the other to become this social memory complex, because it kind of sounds like Ra keeps saying that. But here in the description in the introduction, they're saying that fourth density is after the harvesting from third density, beings would become a social memory complex based on, I guess, whether their service to self or their service to others. Like they separate out from each other. And then all it says for fifth density, the fifth density is the density of light, wherein wisdom becomes the focus and criterion for graduation to the next density. Wisdom. Density of light with wisdom. There's not a lot of information about the fifth density. And they haven't talked about it very much yet, so I really don't feel like I know any more about the fifth. But there is, okay, here's the sixth density. The sixth density balances and unifies the love learned in the fourth with the light or wisdom learned in the fifth, and produces a power to serve others that is more effective than that of love or wisdom alone. And that's all it says. But I have so many more questions. Why can't can you answer all my questions? Because I have more questions. I don't know. Every answer leads to 5 more questions. Yikes. Okay. Back to the book. This was the part that really made me super sad. The challenge or danger of the wanderer is that it will forget its mission, become karmically involved, and thus be swept into the maelstrom from which it had incarnated to aid the destruction. Now they have a little footnote because they're like, what? Do they mean to prevent the destruction? That was the part where I was like, holy crap. I feel that. I know it. And we all do that though, regardless of what density we are, regardless of what level we've reached, regardless of whether we're just repeating a life to learn more lessons or we've decided to come back after we've reached some higher level. We all come into an existence forgetting why the hell we came here in the first place. And that's why it referred to it as foolhardiness or bravery. Because you either gotta be a complete lunatic to want to come back and do this again, or really freaking brave to know that you're gonna forget everything that you wanted to do. You're gonna forget everything that you wanted to accomplish. You're gonna forget what you wanted to learn and have to start all from scratch, relearning, re-experiencing, and possibly messing it up worse than you messed it up previously. Talking about the karma, getting karmically involved. And that part made me want to cry. Forgetting. Ay. Okay. All right. What could one of these entities do to become karmically involved? An entity which acts in a consciously unloving manner in action with other beings can become karmically involved. So if you do something to get somebody not in a loving way. Do any of these wanderers have physical ailments in the earth situation? Due to the extreme variance between the vibratory distortions of third density and those of more dense densities. I'm going to come back to that in a second. If you will, wanderers have a general rule. Some form of handicap, difficulty, or feeling of alienation, which is severe. The most common of these difficulties are alienation, the reaction against the planetary vibration by personality disorders, as you call them, and body complex ailments such as allergies. There's a lot to talk about in this one paragraph. First, let's skip over the dense densities because that's a whole nother story. Let's talk about the next part. As a general rule, wanderers have some sort of handicap, difficulty, or feeling of alienation that's severe. The most common is the alienation. Not feeling like you fit in, not wondering why, where the hell am I? How come I don't fit in with these people? How come nobody understands me? How come nobody believes me when I say something? How come I don't fit in? Does that sound like you? Sounds like me. And so many people, they get pulled onto this woo-woo spiritual path. Nobody understood me ever. Yeah. And I want to remind you all that if you have found this video, if you've already become part of our community on Twitch, if you've already become part of your own community through your own classes or groups or you know, whatever you might have gotten yourself into on this spiritual path of learning weird stuff, you're not alone anymore. You found people. You found the other weirdos in the world. And if there's as many of these wanderers on the planet as Ra says, we might have all found each other. And if you haven't found your people yet, if you're watching this and a tear has come down your cheek because you feel like you haven't found your people and you still feel alienated and you still feel like nobody understands you, you're not alone, my dear. There's so many of us that feel that way. And all you gotta do is reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to others who have the same weird stuff going on. It's not just you. The other part of this paragraph, holy moly. I haven't made the highlight for it yet because it just happened on Friday night and it's only Monday. But during the Twitch stream, I did a reading for Charity. Same Charity I've been talking about. She was able to come on my Twitch stream for the very first time and she got a medium reading. She was just thinking she was just gonna get her grandma, you know, like, yeah, it'll probably be like my grandma or something. No. She got somebody who has been has been a guide and part of Incarnate of past lives, and somebody that she's been highly connected to through telepathy, visions, visitations, etc., etc. That is from a Lemurian past life. We've talked about Lemuria a little bit in the last session. This stuff is all connected. The Lemuria just came up in the last session, and here I am talking about it as a personal experience. So she has this lady who's come to her various times throughout her life, and she has a connection to her in a Lemurian past life. That is the entity that came through for her in her medium reading. And what happened to me channeling this entity, who did enter my body enough to where we blended together pretty substantially. Something happened that I realized had happened to me before as a kid. And really, you'll have to watch the highlight to understand it all. And I don't want to go too much into it because this video is already going to be long. But what ended up happening is I felt a very specific way, and I can explain it like this. My whole body felt like it swelled up like a balloon, but not an airy balloon, like a balloon filled with like cookie dough. It felt really thick and enlarged and bigger than I am. And I realized I had felt this same exact sensation as a child whenever I was sick. And I always attributed it to just being like a fever dream. I was just feeling, weird because I had a fever or whatever. And no, it's the exact same sensation. And now I know that I was being visited by a higher dimensional being to help me feel and get through a sickness. And in this paragraph, Ra describes these 6-dimensional beings that come down to wherever to help serve as dense densities, more dense densities, due to the extreme variance between the vibratory distortions of third density and those of the more dense densities. Whenever somebody had talked about the different levels, they always use the word frequencies. And when I think of a higher frequency, I think of it as being a lighter, more airy thing. But Ra describes it as a density, and the higher it goes, the more dense it gets. And that is what it felt like when this entity came through in Charity's medium reading. It made my whole body feel really dense. And in the highlight, I even use that word. I say, for the very first time, I can explain what that sensation as a kid felt like. And it's dense. Like the mass of a black hole is huge compared to its size. It's craziness. Crazy. This whole video's been really crazy. And we're almost done. I promise. Okay. All right. The last question, which ends up being a very long description, Is there a best way for entities to heal themselves of their physical ailments? The self-distortion is effected through a realization of the intelligent infinity resting within, knowing that you have intelligent infinity within you. This is blocked in some ways by those who are not perfectly balanced in bodily complexes. The blockage varies from entity to entity. It requires the conscious awareness of the spiritual nature of the reality. The corresponding pourings of this reality into the individual person for healing to take place. So you must know that you have a soul that's intelligent to be able to work with it, basically, to heal yourself. Okay, they're using Carla as an example here. Carla has an imbalance of the indigo ray in the penile energy center. Now, we already looked this up in a previous session, and the indigo ray and penile energy center is the third eye. So Carla has a blockage in her third eye. This center receives the intelligent energy from all sources lawful within the one creation. That is, lawful in its third density distortion or illustration. If there is no blockage, these energies pour or stream down into the person, perfecting moment by moment the individual's body complex. If there's no blockage in your third eye, the energy flows down through you, perfecting your physical body. This instrument also experiences some distortion of the green ray energy center of the heart, so the heart chakra. It is overly open due to an intense desire distortion towards the service of others, called universal love. The entity therefore spends itself without regard and in regard to strength or energy. So she's sending out too much love, and she's draining herself through her heart chakra. This distortion is primarily due to the blockage of the indigo ray. So the fact that her third eye chakra is blocked causes her heart chakra to be too open. This misapprehension distortion of the instrument responsible for this blockage is the base orientation towards a belief in unworthiness. Poor Carla. The unworthiness distortion blocks the free flow of the intelligent energy. By thinking that she's not worthy, she's blocking up her third eye chakra. Wow. How worthy she was, and she didn't even know it. For without Carla, we would not be reading this book. Without Carla being used as the channeling instrument for Ra to come through, we wouldn't be reading this book. We wouldn't be learning all this information. So Carla, I hope you've realized your worthiness, because good Lord. I hope that Carla realized it before, because she has passed on to the other side at this point in our time-space continuum. So I hope that she realized it while she was still incarnate. The seventh or violet ray is unimpaired. That is, this being not only an energy receptor, but the sum total of the vibratory level of the individual. So her crown chakra was totally fine. And it's like the sum total of the energy of the person. The other energy centers are also quite clear. So all her chakras are great except for her third eye and her heart. The solution to healing in this case is action that puts into practice the peaceful understanding and humility distortion that the entity is one with their creator, therefore perfected and not separate. Going back to that alienation feeling, right? She thinks that she's separate from others, that there's something wrong with her, that she's not perfect, that she's unworthy. But by realizing that you're one with the creator, that you are the creator, that you're the co-creator, that you're part of this intelligent infinity, you have to accept that you are perfect. In each case of what you call ill health, one or more of these energy centers is blocked. The intelligence of the mind-body-spirit complex needs then to be alerted either by the self, or not alerted, altered by self or a healer. By self as healer or another healer. So all these chakra things that we've been talking about for so long is all true. It's all true, and it's more important than we realize, and that people should all realize that you can't just fix your body, you can't just fix your mind, you also have to fix your soul. It's all connected, people. It's all connected. We're almost done. All right. Is it possible for you to tell us that any of the three of us are have been wanderers? Each of those present are wanderers pursuing a mission. All of them. Carla, Dawn, Jim. I don't know if Tom and Leonard are, but we will definitely say Carla, Dawn, and Jim are all wanderers. How exciting. And they all decided to come back together to do some important work to help spread the law of one. And they forgot their mission, and somehow they ended up finding it anyway. And because of it, we have this book and the preceding volume, which we will probably read at some point. Okay, I'm going to try to make this really short at the end because this video is probably going to be even longer than yesterday's. But at least there was no crying today or ranting and raving. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's probably some stuff in it that'll get me in trouble. And Ari said, I don't care. There's some things I alluded to about my own self that I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with the idea that I'm probably one of these wanderers of a higher density, because I don't want that to mean that I don't want that to be perceived as me thinking that I'm better than somebody else. Because I feel like that's what happens a lot. I said I was going to try to make this short at the end, and I just can't, people. I can't. There's too many things to talk about this time. So, okay. I think that a lot of times these like cult leaders and stuff that come about, and they start out with like these great messages, and they start out with these wonderful things that are going to help people, and then they lure all these people into their community because there's this attraction to it. I wonder how many of those people are wanderers who may or may not be of service to self or service to others. What if some of them were service to others, and because they came into this life forgetting what they were supposed to do, they got karmically involved and the power of it went to their heads, and then they used it for service to self in harming other people? What if that's what that is? Or what if it's really awful service to self entities that come through knowing that they're going to do that, and they do it? Anyway, what I'm trying to say is what I'm trying to say is, I really do think that I am one of these higher density beings, wanderers, if you will, who's come here to be of service to others. But I don't want that to be something that makes me looked upon as something greater than others. I don't want that. I don't want people to think that I think that I'm better than other people, because we're all one. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who, if they heard me say that, that's the very first thing they would think. Oh, she just thinks she's better than everybody else. But I guess I just have to let that go. I have to let the judgment of others go and realize that I have to be true to myself and live my truth. And I have to say my truth. I can't just live my truth, and I can't just hold on to my knowledge, because by holding on to my knowledge, I'm not helping as many people as I can. So here I am, world. I'm saying it. I know that I'm one of these wanderers. I don't know what density I am. I even asked spirit guides, and they wouldn't tell me. So it has to be something I have to figure out on my own. But I know that I am. Well, actually, she said, look within, you know the answer already. So if I'm looking within, the answer is yes. I'm definitely a wanderer. I don't know what density I am, but I'm here to help other people, because I am of the service to others, if you haven't figured that out yet. With how angry I got yesterday. So yes, I'm here to be of service to others through all of my difficulties and alienation throughout the beginning of my life has led me to the place where I can be of service to others. And I hope that these raw discussions have been helping you. So please, let me know if they have. Let me know what you think. You got questions, you got comments, you got concerns? Discuss. Please discuss. Let's have a conversation about these. I don't want it to be a one-sided conversation. I want this to be a multi-level discussion with different people. So tell me what you think. If you made it this far to this awfully long video, tell me everything. What do you think? And love you all. And I'll be back tomorrow with another one. Hopefully it won't be so long. Okay, bye.